Hello and welcome back to Compensation Uncovered, the series that lifts the lid on the world of personal injury claims. We're here to arm all Australians with everything you need to know to make sure you can claim all the financial compensation you're fairly entitled to under the law. Compensation Uncovered is brought to you by our team here at Law Partners. We are Australia's largest specialist personal injury law firm. I'm once again joined by our practice group leaders, senior lawyers, Shane Butcher and Lydia Wheatley. Guys, how are you?
Yeah, really well, really well.
Very well, thank you, Piers.
Terrific. Thank you for joining us once again. Now, last time we talked about some really interesting client stories that help, bring the topic to life for our listeners. I'd encourage people to go back and listen to episodes 1 through to 3 if you want to get up to speed. Today, we're going to conclude our look at TPD by talking a little bit about some of the typical toughest obstacles that, you've faced in your careers when it comes to helping clients make successful claims. We'll also recap what are some of the most sort of successful factors that need to be involved to sort of get claims approved. And finally, we'll do a little bit of crystal ball gazing and think about the future and where the industry's headed and what that might mean for, other lawyers in our team and also for our clients as well. So it's great we've been able to cover a lot of detail about TPD claims and what works and sort of what tends to not work. I'd love to sort of dig a little deeper into the most common obstacles or typical obstacles that you've come across in terms of being able to make a successful TPD claim, starting with you, Shane. Anything that really comes to mind as far as like obstacles you've had to sort of navigate around?
Yeah, absolutely. You probably think I'm going to give you some technical, legal problem that we always face, but in reality, that's what we do. We're used to that. We can handle that.
Yeah.
Dealing with clients, that's what we do. We get to know people, we can handle that. Getting the evidence from the treating doctor, that's probably not
On the medical side.
Yeah, that can be a real challenge for us. People are being treated by different doctors all over Sydney, all over New South Wales, all over Australia. Those doctors don't necessarily know even what TPD is themselves. We've spoken about how a lot of people don't know what TPD is. General practitioners, no different. They may not know what it is. So part of our role often becomes educating the doctor first,
right.
Explain to them not what TPD is generally, but what it is specifically in your policy as an injured client that they need to be satisfied for so they can certify that you meet that definition.
Oh, because policies differ, they're not all the same. Therefore, the doctor might not be aware.
Exactly.
TPD is all the same. Or
exactly. The doctor might have it in their mind that if TPD means you'll never, ever, ever return to work. And that may not be the definition in your policy. It might be a more generic definition where you're unlikely to return to work, et cetera. So we have to educate the doctors and we have to get the paper and the time with them and get their attention. They're running busy practices. You can't just call them and they answer. If anyone's tried to make an appointment with a GP in the last, sort of since COVID, you'll know it's pretty hard to get in there.
Yeah.
So getting their attention to read what we've written to them and for them to understand it and then getting the information back from them.
And that's a time process. What you hope might take a day, a couple of days, might take a couple of weeks or a couple of months as well to work through.
Exactly. Each practice is different. Some GPs are part-time, some are full-times. They're all busy. And we're often working with our clients and asking, when are you seeing your doctor next? Well, I've been chasing a response. Maybe you can sort of prompt them to respond to our letter when you see them next. Trying to get their attention to read the material and respond in a way where they understand the questions we're really asking and don't have a predetermined definition of TPD in their mind when they're trying to answer the question.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. Have you found something similar, Lydia, in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the medical attendant statement that the GPs or doctors have to fill out is actually can be quite tricky. They'll ask the same question in several different ways, and what date did they stop work and what date did they become disabled, for example, and can they return to work in their own occupation, any occupation. It could confuse the doctors completely. So sometimes, it's really important to write to the doctors, or if they've made a mistake, to clarify that, we can write to the doctor to get a treating report to clarify any kind of anomalies within the medical attendant statement. But the support of the doctor, as Shane said, is absolutely key. So it's a really important element of a TPD claim.
And is there an element of, meeting with the doctor or getting on the phone, or is it usually more of a written practice in terms of how we communicate?
Look, it's usually more of a written one.
Yeah.
They're busy. They're doing their best to help their community and support everyone from the common cold to anything that walks in the door. They're busy people. They're probably dealing with some of these requests after hours in their own time. So it's usually written.
And as far as the insurer is concerned, I guess, in terms of obstacles for them, I imagine that those obstacles are lessened when they have this medical evidence being really watertight and complete. Is that correct, Lydia?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I had said in a previous episode, that once we give the material to the fund, we'd like to have all the submissions, all the medical evidence, everything has to line up in accordance with the chronology of the work history and the medical history and all that sort of stuff. One false move on a medical attendance statement, or a claim form for that matter, can cause real complications down the track.
And one of those challenges is, doctors are optimistic. They're trying to help their patients. They're trying to do the best for them to get them back to work or back to some, sense of normalcy for their life. So if you're asking at the wrong time, you're not evaluating your tactics right in terms of when to ask the doctor, you might find the doctor's optimistic and thinks, I think they will return to work.
Yeah.
So, do we get that in writing now? Do we get it later? Sort of judging those timeframes when to action things.
I see.
Is part of the challenge.
Well, I mean, I think a key takeaway here for our audience is that, yes, there are obstacles in this area of TPD claims, but, here at Law Partners, that's what we do. We minimize these obstacles and we make the path to a successful claim as smooth as possible, right?
Yeah, and getting to know our clients personally and really being alongside them in their journey of treatment and recovery. So we actually know the sweet point to write to the doctors and get that evidence and really kind of hold their hand through the process too. That's really important. So there's a lot of timing that is quite delicate throughout this process too.
Yeah, it's not as simple or straightforward as I originally may have thought.
No, it sure isn't.
All right, for this next question, I mean, one of the things we've been able to establish here at Law Partners, we specialise in personal injury law, but that can be across a number of different claim types, TPD being one of them, workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, medical negligence, and public liability being the others. So I suppose if you were talking to, giving advice to other team members or working across cross collaboration with other teams, what sort of advice would you give around some of the more the most important outcomes for having a successful TPD claim? Shane, if I can start with you, how would you approach that?
Yeah, for me, the answer is going to be the same whether I'm talking to someone in TPD or PL or MedNeg or CTP. It's getting to know your client personally. There's so many benefits that you could just write a list and go on and on and on and on about the benefits of getting to know your client personally. And if you don't know them, then how are you going to advocate for them? If you don't know them, how are you going to make them feel like you understand them and you're presenting their life and how the injury is impacting on them?
Is that about understanding what life was like before they were injured or ill, and then the difference between that and afterwards?
Understanding both of them. And particularly in TPD, where you could have multiple injuries contributing to meeting that definition, you can't just isolate yourself and say the person injured their back at work last year.
Right.
Because that alone might not stop them from work. The knee injury 2 years earlier alone might not stop them from work. But combined with another injury, they might be the reason why you meet the definition.
Of course.
Yeah, so you really got to get to know them and ask probing questions that are meaningful so you can understand the situation that your client's in and their family unit's in, and get a whole picture about them and their lives and how you can best represent.
And really that sort of getting to know people personally, I mean, it's not just client service, is it? It's actually contributing to a positive outcome and a more successful claim type. I mean, would you agree with that, Lydia, as far as personalised service, or what other kinds of advice would you give?
Getting to know the information from the client, getting to know them personally, absolutely, that's always key, essential. But also to go through all the material. So quite often we do have a public liability, medical negligence file, as Shane mentioned earlier, or CTP, which is motor vehicle accident, or workers' compensation. Those files can be very voluminous. But what we have to do is look through all of the material, take a chronology, don't be complacent, look at all the medical evidence that the insurance company has for the motor vehicle accident claim, because the TPD insurer will get that material. You don't want them to see something that we haven't seen and we were able to deal with in our submissions or in our evidence at the beginning. So yeah, no nasty surprises. Just make sure everything lines up, put the claim on, and then try to make sure that it gets approved as quickly as possible for the client.
Usually by the end, we know them so well. Sometimes, we know them better than sometimes their family members know them. Like, all their private details in their medical records. You just have to go through and trawl through to make sure you're doing the best job that you can do. And as byproduct of that, you get to know these people really well, and you do become a little bit attached to them as well. You know them.
Right, yeah.
If claims go, for a long time, if they've got a slow recovery process, then you might see them,
over several years, yeah.
Yeah, you might see relationships form and turn into marriages or kids be born, and all sorts of things can happen. So you really get to know these clients, and how are you going to advocate for what they need if you don't know?
So that sort of personalised, getting to know them personally, I suppose it's about establishing trust and establishing rapport as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then combined with, being thorough and not skimping on the detail and making sure you're very, investigate all the details. A kind of powerful
Absolutely.
combination coming together.
Yeah, absolutely, Piers. Yeah, and just verifying things with the client. Just an example of that would be, for example, if somebody had a motor vehicle accident case and it went on for a couple of years, you might have a rehabilitation person within that space that's trying to get the client back to work. There can be reports that say they're able to go back to work. We have to be able to deal with that evidence if the TPD insurer tries to use it, to say the client does not meet the definition. So I've got to be on the front foot with all the evidence. It's very important.
Yeah, and across the big picture.
The bigger picture, that's it. Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. So in terms of industry trends around superannuation and TPD claims, obviously there's a lot of technological changes going on very rapidly. Starting with you, Lydia, just interested if you have any sort of any insights rather into sort of the future direction for this area.
Well, insurance claims generally, I don't know if you've had a knock to your car. I know I reversed mine into my front wall of my garden, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, and I had to claim just a simple claim just to fix the back bumper. But you have this app and you lodge your claim and it's all very streamlined. You don't have to speak to anyone or do anything like that. Yeah, right. They'll even correspond with the garage and pay the invoice and all that sort of stuff. So I do see a little bit of a trend now with the TPD insurers. Claim forms are online. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they would encourage people to jump onto an app or doctors to jump onto an app, all that sort of stuff. It might lure people into a false sense of security that it's extremely simple. I'd be very, very afraid that if people just did that, so much history and chronology of the actual medical treatment and the work history, all that essential stuff will be missing from the application. Imagine if AI or a bot or something was actually reading a claim form and just a medical certificate from the doctor in a claim where there might be a little bit tricky, they're not quite sure if you're meeting the definition and things like that. So it's really, really important that people still get some proper advice.
It's almost as if you might be fast-tracking your claim application, but you're also fast-tracking your denial potentially.
Potentially, and that's what you'd want to be aware of completely. So really that personal service where we would take a concise history from the client. Here at Law Partners, we have 20 years experience doing this stuff. So just, don't assume that it's going to be easy because it's a simplified process. I'd like to just really warn people about that and caution against it.
Still get the advice. What do you think, Shane? Similar?
The policy is the same, but the technology to make your claim improves. Lydia's right, it might look more simple, but the underlying fundamental question that has to be answered in order to pay out the TPD amount is the same. So if you get deceived into a false sense of security, you might think, I've completed some forms, I should be right. And in reality, the same amount of work should still be put into it. You should still be getting the same advice from TPD specialists in order to present your case as best you can, because simple is great. We all have simple, but not at the expense of getting the outcome that you need.
Right, yeah. So make sure you get that advice. Make sure you're talking to the right people, getting the right people on your team, on your side, I should say, before embarking on such a thing, no matter what the future holds and no matter what the direction of the industry is heading.
Yeah, I mean, Lydia's touched on what she sees as a trend in the future. From my perspective, I can add another one, and there's a difference in the ways policies are defined. We've already spoken about that. Some of them are lump sum amounts and some of them are broken down into incremental payments. So it might be, instead of $100,000 in a lump sum, it might be $100,000 spread out over 6 years. Now, as funds and insurers look at what their product they're offering, there's been a move towards those sort of incremental policies. Sometimes it happens by decision, and sometimes it might be a merger of two funds or two super funds merge. One policy has to win out of the other for new members.
I see.
So if you're looking at your policy, which I've time and time again tell people, look before you're injured, that's something you might want to be aware of, is what suits you. Do I want to prove my TPD amount every year for 6 years? Or do I want to prove it once and get one lump sum? So be conscious. I mean, what do you need if you're injured and you can't work to support your family or achieve what goals you need to do?
And take action. Like the power of choice is still with the consumer, right? You can move where you want to move and you can get the expert advice when you need it, and that's what we're advising people to do.
Yeah, exactly. If you look now and think, I'm going to think about it for a month, take the time you need to think about it, but be mindful. So you never can plan when something bad will happen. It just happens to you when you least expect it. So, look into it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Get the right advice, make the right decision and take action, I think.
Once again, amazing. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Lydia, for your time. We really do appreciate it. That wraps up our series about TPD insurance and TPD claims. We'll no doubt speak with you both again soon when it comes to another claim type. To you, our audience, thank you once again for listening to Compensation Uncovered from Law Partners. We hope you found this information really useful and it gave you some clarity into TPD claims and the amazing work that's done here at Law Partners to help protect you and your family and your livelihoods. To stay up to date, once again, be sure to follow us on any of your favourite social media platforms just by searching for Law Partners or indeed at lawpartners.com.au. We will be back before you know it to share more real-life stories and expert legal tips and insights with you. I've been your host, Piers Toomey. Thank you once again for listening and goodbye for now.